Hello everybody, you're welcome back again to the Reggae Appreciation Society. Like any other genre of music, the reggae scene's most visible icons are the stars or frontmen who give the wonderful sound a face to be identified by. But at the heart and creative pulse of the amazing sound are professional musicians, songwriters, and producers. This class of persons are hardly seen but always heard. The subject of today's video, in the great Boris Gardiner, is an absolute titan of the Jamaican music industry who has been at the heart and cutting edge of reggae music right from the days of ska and rocksteady. With more than 6 decades in the game, this gifted singer and instrumentalist seems to have his fingerprints all over some of the greatest songs ever recorded. He's also been part of some of the tightest bands in reggae history, but on top of contributing his instrumental skills to the success of others, he's also had a few massive hits of his own in his sparkling career, and is the only reggae artist whose music got a boost from a royal wedding. His foray into a life in music was sparked by a life-threatening health condition as a child, which inadvertently pushed him onto the road to becoming a musical institution, albeit an unsung one. It's about time the story of this humble legend was told. So without further ado, let's take a look at the unsung legendary life and times of the great Boris Gardiner. He was born on the 13th of January 1943 in Rollington Town, Kingston, Jamaica, to a plumber father and a housewife mother. He was a regular average schoolboy growing up in Kingston when his life was seemingly changed forever with a scary medical diagnosis. At the age of 16, he was found to have a heart condition called tachycardia. The effects of this ailment meant that he could never do strenuous work or even continue going to school. And this of course left him feeling devastated and thinking his life was over. His mother saw that he had an artistic streak as he loved to draw and tried to get him a job as an artist with a company, but that didn't work out. However, young Boris had a wonderful singing voice and had been playing around with performing at a few spots in Franklin Town, Kingston to great applause. So one day in 1960, he was sitting at home feeling sorry for himself when a man named Richard Ace came to his gate looking for him. Mr. Ace was putting a band together and wanted Boris to join them as the lead singer. Of course, young Boris jumped at the offer and the group called the Rhythm Aces was formed. They began to play at a nightclub called the Penguin on Dina Road in Kingston, and they became an immediate hit with audiences. And as their fan base kept growing, the group began to nurse ideas of recording their own music. Their first song was a track called Angela that was written by Boris. Upon release, the song got good reception and gave them plenty of exposure. Their fame kept growing and they began to play more venues and participated in popular talent contest, the Via John's Opportunity Hour. They released a second single titled 1,000 Teardrops, and it became a big hit in Jamaica, reaching number 2 and staying in the top 10 for an incredible 10 weeks. Incidentally, the song was released under Island Records and was one of that label's early hits. Their next song, The Meaning of Christmas, was also a big hit and is still rated today as a Christmas classic. And amazingly, all these songs were written by Boris. But unfortunately, that group's fame didn't translate to financial success and they would break up on very amicable terms. Aside from being a great singer, Boris was a natural with instruments. He taught himself how to play the guitar and the piano while with the Rhythm Aces. He made his first guitar himself with the help of a carpenter and would acquire great skill in no time. And with the Rhythm Aces now no longer existing, he would join a different group called Keschin and the Souvenirs, a 14-piece orchestra that was making a killing entertaining tourists on the hotel circuit on the northern coast of Jamaica. He would become lead vocalist of that group and would also play the guitar every now and then. In 1964, that group began to collapse as many of his members would defect to another band called the Caribs, and Boris would leave and join one of the 2 top bands in Jamaica called the Afro-Jamaicans that was formed and led by Carlos Malcolm. And in that band, Boris would become mates with great icons like Derrick Harriott and Hopton Lewis. Though just a singer and a guitarist in training, a pressing need would thrust him into a more demanding role that he wasn't prepared for. The Afro-Jamaican band's bassist had quit the band, so band leader Carlos Malcolm pressured him into picking up the bass with zero experience. And amazingly, he would do a solid job the first time. And this would lead to him filling that role on a permanent basis. It was that job as a bassist that gave him the opportunity to learn how to read music and also evolve into the master musician that he would become. The Afro-Jamaicans would move to Bahamas for a year before Carlos Malcolm took the band to New York on a permanent basis. On the surface, it would look like a positive move, but when Boris learned that he would have to work regular 9-to-5 jobs on weekdays and play music only on weekends, he quit the band and moved to Canada, where he joined 2 other artists to form a trio. But the cold weather in that country forced him back to Jamaica in 1967. He was now a seasoned, incredible musician and would attract the attention of the owner of a nightclub in Kingston called the Bronco, who asked Boris to form a band to play in his establishment. So Boris took the offer and formed a band which he named the Broncos, an elite group that would include future big names like Keith Sterling, who would later join the Wailers as a keyboardist. And it was in that time that he became heavily in demand to work as a studio session musician, and his career would go to the next level a day when he got a call from none other than the great Coxsone Dodd to be part of Studio One's in-house band. And Studio One's in-house band was a superstar lineup that had legends like genius keyboard player Jackie Mitu. In his time with Studio One, he played the bass on absolute classics that included the Heptones on Top and Marshall Griffith's Feel Like Jumping. It wasn't long before Coxsone Dodd's rival, Duke Reid, would also employ his services during that amazing rocksteady era, and he would play on classics by the likes of Pat Kelly, Slim Smith, and The Techniques. On top of his exploits in the studio, his band The Broncos was also becoming the most in-demand concert tour backing band in Jamaica, providing instrumentals for the likes of Toots and the Maytals, John Holt, and Ken Booth in the biggest concerts all over Jamaica. And to add to all he had going for him at that time, he would also become part of Baron Lee and the Dragonaires, and would also work as session instrumentalist at Baron Lee's studio, Dynamic Sounds. It was during that period that he would score his first solo smash hit in the sublime Elizabethan Reggae in 1970, and that song was a cover of a classical music piece from 1951 by a British composer, Ronald Binge. And Elizabethan Reggae took Jamaica and eventually the UK by storm, reaching number 5 on the British charts and becoming a big commercial hit. But whether by accident or intentionally, the song was credited at first to Baron Lee, which would initially deny Boris of the credits and royalties, though it was later corrected. On the success of that single, Boris Gardiner would tour the UK in 1970 to promote that track, as well as his debut album, Reggae Happening, a delightful 10-track compilation that included his iconic hit track, Oh My Commanding Wife. He would continue his imperious form as one of the island's most in-demand session instrumentalists and band leader of his group, the Broncos, when he would get the opportunity to work with another legendary producer and phenomenal artist. By 1972, elite bassist Aston Barrett and his brother Carlton Barrett had quit Lee Scratch Perry's Upsetters band to join the Wailers, and Perry needed a replacement, and he would call on Boris to join the Upsetters at the legendary Blackout Studios. And along with that amazing lineup, Boris Gardiner would craft some of the greatest roots reggae instrumentals ever put to wax. And I'm talking absolute monster classics like Max Romeo's War in a Babylon, the Heptones' Party Time, and Junior Mervin's Police and Thieves. And in that period, Boris would also play the bass on Bob Marley's classic Funky Reggae Party. He would also lend his skills as a member of Bunny Lee's elite studio band, The Aggrovators, as the 1980s unfolded. But as that new decade roared on, it also marked the takeover of the musical landscape by electronic dancehall and the relegation of roots reggae, as well as instrumentalists like Boris Gardiner, to a less prominent second-place position. It was during that period that he began to work with producer and guitarist Willie Lindo, and the pair would come together to record 3 songs in 1986, and one of these songs was the track I Want to Wake Up With You. But the overwhelming influence of the young red-hot dancehall artists at the time saw all his songs go painfully unnoticed. And in fact, I Want to Wake Up With You was released the same day as Supercat's smash hit Siboops Day, so you can just imagine how it went. But after a couple of weeks, I Want to Wake Up With You began to catch on and eventually would rise to number 5 on the Jamaican charts. And the song became noticed by a London-based reggae producer who would make a deal with Boris and Lindo to distribute it in the UK. And upon release in Britain, it quickly began to get traction and airplay, but it would truly get launched into the stratosphere when it would get major airplay during a major event of national significance. That event in question was Royal Wedding, which took place in July in 1986 between Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson. Britain was abuzz with all the news about the wedding, and the video DJ would dedicate the song I Want to Wake Up With You to the new couple. And that alone sparked incredible interest in the song. It became a massive hit that went to number 1 in the UK for 3 weeks in August, and also got to number 1 in Australia, as well as top 10 in 6 other countries. He would also bag the awards for Best Reggae Vocalist and Best Reggae Single of the Year in the 1986 Canada Music Awards. By the 1990s, he has slowed down on recording and focused mostly on his session work and producing new artists. Today, Boris Gardiner is enjoying his retirement as an elder statesman of reggae and Jamaican music at large, and it's good to know that he's reaping all the rewards after 6 decades with robust royalty payments and numerous awards. In 2006, he was awarded the Order of Distinction by the Jamaican government. In 2015, he received a call from superstar US rapper Kendrick Lamar, who wanted to sample one of his songs, a deal that earned Boris Gardiner an undisclosed but very nice amount of money. His music was also included in the soundtrack for the movie Moonlight, which came out in 2016 and bagged 3 Oscars. Boris Gardiner, the living legend, is truly a Jamaican institution and national treasure with almost unrivaled influence on the history of reggae music, and his timeless creations lend further weight to the saying that good music never dies. So there you have it. Thank you for watching the video today. Please leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, Jah bless.